Well, good morning. How are you all? Good morning. Do you see the light at the end of the tunnel? Yes. It's there. Dr. Watson is going to pull up some information for me to refer to as we talk about, but I am the lucky one that gets to talk to you about the TPA. So anyway, I hope that you haven't heard horror stories or anything like that, because it's not that bad. But I will tell you the one thing you have to do is keep up with it. Don't put it off until the end. So I'm going to talk about task 1 today, and then we have another two meetings. One where I will just talk to elementary and just talk to secondary, and we'll go over maybe tasks 2, 3, 4, I forget how many I really go over, and then the last time we'll come back together again. And the reason we split that is because questions coming from elementary and secondary are slightly different, and we just felt that it worked a lot better. So,
Just let me pull
I
it.
am going to give you homework, and I'm not sure when our next, it's not next week, but the week after? Or is it next week? Is it
I'll
next
have to
week?
look, yeah.
Okay, Mrs. Priest is going to look up those dates for you, but by the time we meet again, I want you to have read seriously the TPA, okay? Because I'm going to be saying things that you may say, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but it will make sense if you read it. So I really need you to read the entire TPA. In addition, I need you to read the rubric. The rubric has some information in it that is not necessarily in the verbiage for the TPA in that description. And so if you read the rubric, you might be able to earn yourself a few more points, whereas had you not read the rubric, you wouldn't have seen that. Okay, so it's really important that you read the TPA and the rubric before we meet again, which is next
Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay, so it's next Tuesday and Thursday.
21st, 23rd.
Okay, so elementary, you have until the 21st to read it. Secondary, you have until the 23rd to read it. So you've got a little over a week for both of you. But just read that, and I think it will help as we talk through. A couple of things before we go in detail to task 1, and that is you've probably heard other people talk about it, et cetera, et cetera. We do not give deadlines on when task 1 is due, when task 2 is due, et cetera. But you will kind of get a flow for how it's going for you and what you need to do. Seriously, don't put any of it off. For instance, I'm going to talk about task 1 today, and once you go into your school tomorrow, you could, by when we meet next week, or even by the weekend, you could have task 1 pretty much complete. A lot of it's just demographic information. A lot of it you will find from some websites that we're going to give you. Some you might want to talk to your teacher and get some additional information. But the majority of task 1, as far as the template goes, you could have completed. Now, each of the tasks have a narrative part. And so all of that will be built in, but I'll show you that in just a minute. So I'm going to go back to just some general information. You have to get a 2 on every single element of the TPA in order to pass it. Now, I need you to just erase from your brain anything that you've thought that a 2 means, because most students, if you're on a 4, 3, 2, 1, a 2 equals a what? What do you think a 2 equals? A C. It does not equal a C, okay? So you need to get that out of your brain right now. A 4 does not equal an A, a 3 does not equal a B, a C does not equal a 2, and a D does not equal a 1. However, a 1, you can all automatically say that equals an F. Okay, because if you get a 1, you have to repeat. All right? So any 1 means you repeat. And I saw a lot of body movement changes there, some stiffening and some heavy breathing. That doesn't mean you need to repeat the whole student teaching experience. Could some of you? Yes, but typically that's not the case. Okay, and I'll tell you why some people get some 1s. But you need to have a 2, 3, or a 4 in order to pass the TPA on every single section, every single element. Okay? If you don't, if you get a 1, you will have a chance to repeat. that means repeating that section. Most of the time, it's just that one section. And I'll tell you, most students have to repeat because they didn't write enough. They didn't answer the question. They skipped it and didn't put anything. I will tell you that and this is a state performance task. So most universities and colleges in the state do this, not all of them, but the majority of them. And I will tell you that there is some talk because all of us have had some meetings and talked about, well, some students just turn it in, and I think, and I'm going to say you, and I'm not talking about you individual, I'm talking about experiences we've had from students in the past, because you haven't done it yet. But I think what some students say is, oh my gosh, it's due March the 5th. March the 5th, it's due by 11:59, okay? And so something happens and you just, you put it off, you procrastinated, and it's March the 4th, and oh my goodness, you don't have half of it finished. So you say, yeah, I'm just going to submit it, and they're going to give me a chance to redo what I didn't do anyway, and so it's not going to be a big deal. That has happened in the past, and it's happening more and more. I will tell you that there is some talk among the state people, and one of the options is to immediately fail that person, meaning they will repeat the entire student teaching session and have to redo the entire TPA. So please don't do that. If something happens, hopefully it will have happened before March the 4th. If it happens on March the 4th, I hope you are pretty much done anyway. You need to talk to Mrs. Preach, your supervisor, me, Dr. Watson, somebody, and let us know what's going on. That doesn't mean we're going to give you an extension, but please don't just submit your TPA and half of it be missing, because at this point there is a good chance that will be an automatic failure to student teaching and that you will have to repeat it in the fall, okay? And we don't want that to happen. So now on back to and I don't expect that to happen, but we're just seeing a little bit more of that. I just kind of wanted to put that out there. So back to reasons why you would have to redo a section. Lack of answering the question, just turning it in without anything there. Sometimes students will upload the TPA, and on your end it looks good, but maybe you uploaded the wrong version. And so you uploaded maybe not your last document that you made changes to. So just make sure when you put in whatever it is you're going to put in, that it's what you think it is. I was going to say something else I just forgot. It'll come back to me. So those are reasons for you to have to do a repeat on certain things. So once the evaluators get it, like I said, it's due March the 5th. Once the evaluators start looking at them, they will give you feedback and tell you, okay, task 1, part A, you need to redo. And they might tell you it's because you didn't put enough information. When a statement says to elaborate, or describe, or discuss, or analyze, those things can't be done in one sentence, okay? Now, I am not telling you to put in a bunch of fluff, all right? So I'm not telling you to take a paragraph and turn it into 15, but I am telling you to make sure that what is there is what you want to be there, and that it explains what you're trying to say, okay? So we all want at least a 2. Remember, that is not a C. The evaluation form that's used on you when you do your student teaching, not the TPA, but your student teaching, that's the exact evaluation form that is used with teachers in the field. And I'm not going to ask you how you think you rank with teachers in the field, but they have to have at least a 2. And there are some of them that only get 2s. So if you're a student who's saying, well, I'm a 4 and I can, beat out any of those teachers out there, just be careful. Because what we don't want to happen is for you to get 4s across the board and then you go out in the field, and it's the same evaluation form, and with another semester, you probably would get better, don't you think? And then your principal starts giving you 1s and 2s and things like that, and you're saying, well, wait a minute, I just graduated from Marshall, and I had all these 4s, and now you're giving me a 2 or a 1. That's the reason. Okay, so it's all based on the same thing. It is written, the TPA really is written so that you will get a 2. That's the way the state wrote it. If you get a 3 or a 4, that just means you're really good in that particular section. Okay? So don't think, oh my goodness, I got straight 2s. Straight 2s is a pass. That's what you need to keep in mind. Okay? Any questions so far? All right, so task 1 is the contextual factors. So you're going to be talking about things about your school, about the community, the classroom, the students. And in the part that I told you to read, which I'm not sure, is it on their live text page now?
Tell me what you're talking about.
The directions and everything. Do they have stuff on there?
A few people,
Can
when
they-
I mentioned it, said yes, that they saw West Virginia TPA
Yeah, you
as a
signed
link
the
on
top.
their
Yes,
live.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you have that assignment. So this is what I'm telling you that you need to be reading, okay? There's usually a little bit of verbiage on each task. Then you have this chart looking that tells you what the task is, what to do, and required artifacts. And then the other document, which is your TPA, will you pull that up just for a second? The document that you will be typing into will include all of the charts, and then scroll down just a little bit more. And then, like I said, most of them have narrative parts. There will be space there for you to type your answers. My suggestion is that you type everything in a Word document, save it several places, and then when you're ready to, you think it's all done, then you can put it in here and save it. But once you submit, you can't make any changes whatsoever. Okay, so you don't want to submit until probably closer to March the 5th. But I would keep all of that in a Word document. Again, I would save it on a flash drive, I'd save it on my computer, I'd save it on another flash drive and give it to a friend or do something. Because yes, we've had students who have lost their information on their computer, or they've lost the flash drive, or a cat has swiped the laptop. That really happened, and lost everything. But anyway, so you will be typing into this. Now, we just put space, so if you need more space, expand it. Same thing with all the charts as we go through. If you need more space in the charts, expand it. Okay, there will be a chart where you might need Dr. Watson's help to do that, but when we get to that, we'll talk about it. So if you want to scroll back up, sorry. So this particular chart, in most of the charts, they are just there for you to list things. So you're not going to be typing a lot of narrative in the charts, but you can put bullet points or little dashes, and you're going to be listing things. The narrative is where you're going to kind of make it into paragraph form and all of that. So in the contextual factors, the first part you're going to talk about the community, the school, and the family. And then the next part you're going to talk about the classroom factors. And the last one you're going to talk about the student factors. And the narrative asks you how are all of those going to impact your unit and all of that. You may not have thought about your unit yet because you haven't been out there, so you don't even know what's going on. So, but at least this chart could be done probably by this weekend. Now, do you have to do it by this weekend? No. But the more you do now, the less you have to do later. So we put suggested items in here for you to consider. You don't have to answer every single one of them, and you can add additional stuff. But I would put as much information as you can in there about the school community and family, classroom, and student factors. For instance, like on the family, it says percentage of families with college degrees, annual income, parental. Now, we're not asking you to go out and ask all kids what their parents' annual income is, but that information can be gathered, and we'll show you where in just a little bit. So, you know, if there's one little piece of this that you can't find, that's okay. Don't panic because you can't find everything, but put as much in each of those sections as you possibly can. And if you find some other interesting facts that you want to put in there, feel free to do that as well. Okay? Dr. Watson, do you want to show them one of the sites? Probably, I don't think we put it in the documentation, but it's probably one of the more popular sites to go to get some of your demographic information about your school and your county.
Yeah, if you write down somewhere in your notes, wvde.us, that's the State Department of Education, it's their website.
wvde.us.
wvde.us. On this website, what if all else fails, on your notes, type Zoom WV, because that's what you can search for. But what you're looking for is down here where it says educational data. And then here's where it says Zoom WV. But you can probably do a Google search and come straight there, but I'm not sure. So here's where you're going to start seeing information about enrollment, attendance, graduation. So enrollment's where you're going to start seeing, what's your school enrollment, how's it broken down by socioeconomic status. There's also state assessment results if you want to see how your school does on the state assessment results. So this is where you can start getting all of that kind of information that she's talking about. And so you can do it by state, you can do it by county, you can do it by even school. Up here at the top is where you can start limiting things, filter data. So here's where I can change it by district, by the actual school I'm in. So just to pick a school, just to show you how it does it. So this is just the first elementary school that I picked, so that's the data specific to that school. So they call this Zoom WV, but it's from the State Department of Ed website.
Now, do we expect all of these charts and all of this to be in your TPA? No, but you're just using the information. There is a chart. You want to pull that demographic chart up, not the template here, but the one where it asks them to list.
You're talking about in the TPA?
Yes.
Okay.
Where it asks you, what the count is of student ethnicity. I think it's separate, isn't it?
It's in that Excel spreadsheet.
Is that what you want to show, the
Yes.
Excel spreadsheet? Okay, I'm sorry,
Sorry, my fault. Just so you can see, you're going to be typing numbers in. So you don't necessarily have to, and probably you don't want to put those charts.
Oh, I didn't
But
have it
you'll
open.
get that information. Now, where he's going, you have all of this listed, is Chart Maker. And we'll go back to that in just a second. So there's some charts that we did for you throughout. When you get to task 6 on impact of student learning, there's a lot of bar graphs that we ask you to do in that section. But we have put together a chart maker for you. And so when you type in the information, it will do the chart for you, okay? We're not concerned that you can make charts. We assume that most of you can do that. Our concern is that you can interpret those and analyze the data. So the chart will be made for you, and then you do have to copy and paste those into your TPA. We'll get to that when we talk about task 6. But this information here, of course, you have to pick 2 focus students. And usually we ask you to put those focus students at the top, just so you can keep those separated. And I would call them focus student 1 and focus student 2. Obviously, you're not going to use any student names throughout this at all. Call them something else and say, this is a student name or whatever. But you're going to put this information in, and then it will do some calculations over here for you so that you can use that in your narrative when you are answering those questions in task 1. Yes, sir.
So I have 400 students.
Mhm.
Should I do that for everyone?
Okay, so you're talking because
Elementary music.
Okay, so for those of you, well, everybody, even in secondary, you're going to pick a class that you're going to be doing your unit with. Now, you may do it with all of your students. If you have all 10th graders and all the classes are pretty much the same, and you want to do the same unit with all of them, that's fine. But you're going to have I hate to call it a focus class, but you're going to have a class that is going to be what your TPA is about. So I would just do it on those students. Now, those 400 will probably come into play if you talk about the school and things like that. But yeah, you'll see later on when you have to list everything about every student you have, you want to do 400. So will you go back to, so anyway, I talked about this. I just want to show them where this came from. So on your live text account, you have all of these resources listed here for the TPA. And so the bottom one says WVPTA chart maker. That's where the charts are going to be. That's where you're going to input that information. And those things will not automatically show up in your TPA. You're going to have to copy and paste those in. And you will see as we go through where those need to be. P12 consent form, that is, have you talked to them about that, Mrs. Priest?
No, I have not.
Okay, so there's a consent form because you will be videoing that you must send out to every student in your class. My suggestion is that you go ahead and print a copy of this evening, or at least in the next couple of days, take it with you and go ahead, regardless of when you're going to do your videoing, go ahead and get the students' consent. Some schools and some teachers will tell you, oh, we already have that on file, but bless you, for our purposes and the state's requirements, you have to use this form. So that if they already have one on file, you still have to use this form. Okay, so and you need to get it from every single student. You will come back in 2 weeks when we meet the last time and say, you know, I have a handful of students that aren't turning it in, what should I do? I can only tell you what I would do and what I would tell my students to do. Some of you may have to give some incentives. Maybe they're going to get 5 extra minutes of recess or something if they bring their form in. I don't know. Be creative with what you come up with. If it's time to video and you don't have the consent forms, you don't want to put those students on video camera. Not that we're going to be showing it to anybody, but you never know what the case is and why the student or the parent does not want them to be on. So my suggestion always is that you put that student or a couple of students out of camera view. Now, I did not say out of the classroom because that might be the only instruction that they're going to get that particular day on whatever the subject is. So if you've got the camera like this, then I might put them in the table over here. Again, I'm not going to seclude them. I'm not going to seclude them from the class. I'm not going to move that table way out so that they know that they're not on camera's view. But anyway, you just don't want them to be on camera. If they accidentally get on camera because they got up and walked across the room, I've seen students who put some type of an emoji or, you know, black out their face or something like that. And that's perfectly fine. So anyway, you will want to make sure that you get one of these for every student.
Wait a minute, I'm on. There we go.
Oh, no, go back to that list.
Okay.
Okay, and then there's a glossary there that explains some terms if you need it. The West Virginia TPA 4.0, those are the directions, those are the things you need to be reading. So I think, okay, so the one that's a Word document that says West Virginia Teacher Performance Assessment, WVPTA Student Work File, that's where you will be typing into, okay? So if you type into it and you don't type anywhere else, make sure you save it, but don't submit it. But again, I would put everything, that way you don't have to worry about making corrections here. You can do all your corrections on a Word document, let it spell check for you and all of that before you put it in here. But that's what you're going to be putting it into. The lesson plan format is the one that you should know, be very familiar with. And, the first one is handbrake when you do your videos. They may be too big for live text, and you might want to condense them a little bit. So that's the compression.
Yes, we know it is spring 2020 and not fall 2017. That's when those were created. So that's,
Oh, yes. I
don't,
didn't catch that.
don't blast my email box telling me you've got one file.
Somebody will.
We don't change the date until there are major corrections done to it. It just helps us know which thing is up there. So those are the files that you're going to see on your live text account. I think that's probably, I think I've gone over. I want you to read the directions and read the rubric. I've gone over task 1. Like I said, the template you could go ahead and start filling out by this weekend. I'm not saying that's what you have to do. I'm just trying to encourage you. You will be, and then the questions here, once you get your unit in place and all of that, then you can start addressing these questions. Let me just say a little bit about the unit. And we'll talk more about it later on, but one of the first things that you're probably going to start thinking about is what am I going to do for my unit? And then some teachers will want you, once you have an idea, they may talk with you tomorrow. You may have your idea for your unit by the time you leave tomorrow. And then they're going to say, okay, when can you start it? You're going to start planning it. You're going to have it all designed. Some of you are just ready to go and get it. You're excited about it. It's going to be all written and everything. And maybe you're not going to teach it for 2 weeks. Please don't do that. Because before you write your unit, you have to give a pretest. You cannot teach a unit if you don't know what the students know and don't know. So you may have this great idea planned, and you may have all this information in it, and if you teach it, you may see the students sleeping and rolling their eyes and working on other stuff. And when you question them about it, they may say, we did that last year. We already know that. And you were so excited because you thought it was a great unit, and they already know it. So in order to help you and help them not to be so bored, is if you pre-test them, they will let you know what they know and what they don't know. So maybe you were planning to do 10 cool things, and when you pre-tested them, they already knew 5 of them. Well, then you don't teach those. So then you're going to have to make some adaptations to your unit as to, oh, okay, they already know half of it, so I need to go in more detail, or I need to go another direction. So you can think of what you want your unit to be with, you can talk about that with your teacher, but keep in mind that before you start teaching it and before you start writing it, you're going to have a pre-test. You're going to have a post-test at the end as well. They're the same. But anyway, we'll talk about that next week, and I think it'll be, by then you'll probably know what you're going to be doing and all of that, and you'll have had some time in the classroom. So just know that you can't start your unit yet. Also, I did mention that you will be videoing, so that's later on down the road, but not too far down the road. This semester's going to be over before you know it, and you're going to be ready to graduate and on your own. So that's a good thing, but just don't push it, okay? We want to make sure you can get to that graduation date. Yes.
So, in the directions for task 1, it says that we have to reference where we got the information. Do we have, is that just for the narrative, or do we reference the information on the chart as well?
Okay, so that's a good question. Thanks, Allie. On where it says required artifacts, it tells you that you need to document and use the bibliographic information and all that stuff. That's for the website. You'll want to put that in, and that goes at the end of each section, or the end of each task, sorry. So in task 1, if the only thing you used was maybe the teacher and or the principal in the school and they gave you some information, just let us know that, as well as maybe if you use the website, put that in there. If somewhere along the way when you're writing your unit, you found some cool activity on, I don't know, some website, list that for us so that we don't assume it's your own. So anything that you use that's not your own, you want to just make sure that you list that at the end of each task.
Do they need to be cited in any type of formation or just the website?
They do need to be cited, and I think, we scroll to the very beginning, I think we say APA.
Yeah.
APA? Okay, so in APA format.
Actually, it says you may use any standard
that's it.
form, however, APA is recommended.
Okay, all right, I couldn't remember what we decided. All right, so APA is recommended, but you can put whatever you want. Thanks, Steve, or Dr. Allen. Oh, there it is. Other questions? Either I did a great job or you don't know what to ask me. Yes?
When we're typing our narratives, do we need to have in-text citations as well if we're to quote anything, or are we not to quote anything, or what's the?
I mean, if you quote something word for word, yes, you can put those in there. I'm not, I don't know what you might be quoting, but yes, but if you do, yeah, go ahead and put those in text. I'd go ahead and listen at the end as well, just so when your evaluator's looking for it, they'll see it at the end. Other questions? Have I scared you? Yes? Oh, don't be scared. Yes?
Are there any sources at Marshall that help us along to check and make sure we're doing it right? Can we take it to the writing center? I don't know.
So you're wanting a sample? No. There are, yes, we have tons of samples, but one of the things that the state, when they put this together, one of the things that they really encouraged every university to do was not do that. If I throw even a sample up here that's a 4.0, you know what I'm going to get? I'm going to get all of the same things all over again. We want you to think, we want you to be creative, and don't ask your supervisors to read them along the way. That is one of the things that's not supposed to happen either. It's guided along the same thing. Some universities and colleges in the state that do not use the West Virginia TPA, excuse me, use Ed TPA and PPAC, and both of those are designed pretty much the same way as we designed the TPA, the West Virginia TPA. So it's not get task 1 done and have it graded, get task 2 done and have it graded. Task 1 is probably about the only one that's individual and could be done in isolation without too much teaching done, even though you have to address some questions that relate to your unit. But everything else kind of goes together. So you may be writing parts of task 4 before you write parts of task 2. Not really, but anyway, there are some parts that you can write before you write others. And so, yes, there are samples. Do we share them? No. We just really want to see what you can come up with and go from there. So as far as taking it to the writing center, I wouldn't do that. Honestly, no one else is going to know what you're supposed to be doing. So if someone reads it and they say, oh, I don't think you should put this in here, da 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 da, that may be the one thing that caused you to get a 1. And we may have said, you really needed to put, and you're like, but so-and-so told us we didn't have to put that. But so-and-so hasn't done the TPA training. All the evaluators have been trained, and so we know what we're supposed to look for. And so I think, I don't know all of you, but I think the majority of you, and I think all of you, know how to answer a question, and you kind of get that feeling, okay, I said what I need to say, I think I've answered it. And if you haven't, your evaluator will let you know.
Now, the only, if you want to call it an exception to that, is if you need technical assistance. If you can't upload the video to live text, or the spreadsheet's not giving you the information that you want, then you can email, it always ends up coming to me anyway, you can email me directly, and I'm happy to help you with it, but that has nothing to do with the writing.
Forward.
Yes,
Yes,
it all comes to me
technical
eventually.
support, we can do. Yes, sir.
So you literally just answer the questions basically in that document, and that's all we need to do?
Based on your unit, yeah.
Okay.
And that's what, and maybe I didn't say that, but that's what this TPA is based on, and that is the unit that you are teaching. Not the other lessons that you're teaching in your room. This is just based on the unit that you are teaching. So I will say that if you by chance, got to give you the worst case scenario, fail it, okay? You will have a chance to redo it from the very beginning in your second placement. But I will be honest with you, that's going to be tough because this is not due until after you've started your second placement. And by the time those final grades get out, you're probably going to have already been in your second placement 2, sometimes 3 weeks. And then that shortens that time. Has it happened? Yes, we have had people who have had to do that. Have people not passed student teaching because they didn't pass the TPA? Yes, that has happened too. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just telling you, it does happen. Not a lot, but it does happen. So look at read it, read the rubric so that you can answer or ask the questions next week that you need to. And that's not going to be the only time you can answer or ask questions. You can always email me and ask me questions and all of that. But yes, if you answer the questions, it'll be fine.
Okay, this one, my email for Rooster was elementary, but for the unit, should we try to include as many subjects as we can, or should we really just focus on one subject?
That question comes up every single semester, and what I usually say is, talk to your supervisor. Now, you 3, 4 are in a different situation, so we'll talk about that. I think we have a meeting coming up in a couple weeks. So we'll talk about that, but most elementary supervisors will want as much information in that, or they'll say, okay, you have to teach this, and one other subject. But I usually leave that up to the supervisor, because chances are you're not going to end up with all 6 or 7 subjects in your unit. Or at least not every day. You might clear out. Yes?
I already talked to my teacher, she already just like she was mostly on math. So we're passing a few other subjects from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so.
But we'll talk about that. So, yeah, you probably don't want it, especially in elementary, you don't want it to be just one focus. I mean, a lot of times there's one focus, but you need to include other things as well. And with math, you can do that. You can do math stuff in social studies and science and reading and all kinds of stuff. So that shouldn't be hard to get.
Kind of similar to my question since I'm in elementary. So like if my unit topic is one thing, but there's procedures that happen other than that each day, is that fine? Because like my topic is over like dynamic contrast, but if I have a historical section each day, is that okay also?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do the evaluators have experience in specific content areas?
We try to match those up, so the music people usually will help with the music part. The elementary usually look at the elementary. So we try our best to match those up as best we can. If there's someone who has one, because we're really not necessarily 100% looking at content, we're looking at all the other stuff too. So, I mean, I don't usually evaluate the music ones, but I've had music since I was yay big. So I could look and see if it sounds like it's on the right track or something like that. So we try to match them up the best we can. If someone struggles, we let somebody else look at it and get a second opinion too. Other questions?
And I just want to say this, because, we say we won't help you. We won't read it and give you feedback on everything. But if you have a question, ask the question.
Right.
Send me an email, send Dr. Lucas an email, send Dr. Watson an email. We'll find out an answer for you. Does that make sense? Okay.
And we do get questions quite a bit. I mean, I know a lot of them go to Mrs. Priest and she forwards and says, well, what do you think about this?
Right.
And so based on, as long as we've been doing this and what other people in the state say as well, we can come up with answers. So it's not that we're going to say you're on your own. Don't ask us anything. We'll let you know how you do after March the 5th. That's all. Let me say one more thing about if you get feedback and it says you need to redo certain elements, please pay attention to the feedback. I will tell you that we've had students in the past who have been told basically, this is what you left out, this is what you need to do. So they redo it and they turn it back in and they didn't do anything that was suggested. So they get it back again and same thing. They turn it back in, nothing. So that pretty much tells you, and there's not a lot of time for corrections. So maybe twice, and then you're going to be sitting right here listening to this again in the fall. Yeah, sorry.
And like Dr. Lucas said, we don't have like different dates that you turn different things in, but like I mentioned earlier, I would really try to set some accountability dates for myself. I'm going to talk to my group that I'm supervising about doing that, because I had students who, like I said, were finished 2 weeks early, and got their stuff submitted and it was good and they got it back and everything was fine. And then I had people who were working on it that day that it was due. And that's just not good for anybody, you know? And I know a lot of people say, oh, I'm a procrastinator, oh, I work good under pressure. Don't do that with this.
And when we get questions at 10 PM and it's due at 11:59, you may or may not get a response.
Right.
And so don't say, well, I asked you and you didn't tell me what to do, so I just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, well, today is January the 13th. It's due March the 5th, so you almost have 2 months. All right? Use that 2 months to the best for you,
Yeah.
okay? And if not starting for 1 month is best for you,
Good luck.
yeah.
There's like formatting issues and like, do we get a chance to resubmit for like stuff like that? Because I've done parts of it for like other classes and when we submit it, it looks fine, but on like their end looking at it, it moves stuff.
We've done this for probably
I'm
about
not
4
sure
or
we
5
have.
years, and I'll be honest, all the ones I've rated, I don't think I've ever had that. Now, if, you know, if your paragraph starts this much indented in, we're not gonna send that back to you.
Can I-
But
Wait a minute, can I interrupt?
Mhm.
And I don't mean to call her out, but is it Dr. Islanger's class that you did it for?
Possibly. It's been a couple different classes, but it could
Okay.
be because it's like,
She uses an old version of it, and so it probably does.
Oh.
Okay, so that could be it.
So
Yeah.
I've never seen it, and, I mean, I do the training, so I know
Right.
no one's ever told me we've had formatting issues, so I don't think that'll be an issue, but if it is an issue, yes. If we can't understand it, or if it comes in Spanish or some language we can't read, we'll send it back and say, could you fix this? And we have had students who've turned it in before, and maybe just task 5 was missing, and so we assume that that's probably you uploaded a version before you stuck 5 in there, and so we'll say, task 5 is missing, did you mean for it to be? And instead of let that be your first submission as a fail. I hate to use that word, but
I know, right?
it is. Other questions? Okay, so I think it's lunchtime, but I'm not going to turn you loose. Mrs. Priest will do that. But please, 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 before I see you again on Tuesday or Thursday of next week, please read the TPA document and the rubric so that you will know what questions to ask and what I'm talking about when I go through it. And we will not cover it all next week. We'll meet one more time to cover the endings.
Thank you. Thanks. Good deal.